Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Book Brood, and this is kind of a milestone video here, sort of almost. But I, as you know, am trying to read this list of the top 100 science fiction books of all time, and I am about at the halfway point. A couple of the books have fallen off the list because I think they changed the format or the criteria for the books on them, but I own 46 of them. Hopefully this shot works out here. And these are them here. And so I'm going to talk about those. First, I'm just going to rattle off what I have read so far. So, Dune, 5 stars, Ender's Game, 3 stars, The Foundation trilogy. I'm working my way through 2 and 3 right now, but 3 stars so far with those. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, 5 stars. Fahrenheit 451, 4 stars. 2001: A Space Odyssey, 4 stars. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, 4 stars. Neuromancer, 2 stars. iRobot, 3 stars. Starship Troopers, 4 stars. Ringworld, 3 stars. Rendezvous with Rama, 5 stars. The Forever War, 4 stars. Brave New World, 5 stars. The Time Machine, 4 stars. Childhood's End, 5 stars. The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, 4 stars. The War of the Worlds, 4 stars. The Martian Chronicles, 3 stars. Slaughterhouse 5, 5 stars. The Left Hand of Darkness, 5 stars. Snow Crash, 5 stars. The Moat in God's Eye, 3 stars. Speaker for the Dead, 5 stars. The Stars My Destination, 4 stars. The Man in the High Castle, 2 stars. The Caves of Steel, 4 stars. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, 1 star. Cat's Cradle, 3 stars. Contact, 4 stars. A Wrinkle in Time, 3 stars. Day of the Triffids, 4 stars. Fire upon the Deep, 5 stars. Red Mars, 5 stars. Frankenstein, 5 stars. Flowers for Algernon, 4 stars. The Diamond Age, 5 stars. The Handmaid's Tale, 5 stars. Old Man's War, 5 stars. A Princess of Mars, 4 stars. The Road, 4 stars. Out of the Silent Planet, 2 stars. Altered Carbon, 4 stars. The Hunger Games, 4 stars. Flatland, 1 star. Waystation, 5 stars. Roadside Picnic, 5 stars. The Siberiad, 4 stars. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, 4 stars. And then 2 that have fallen off the list. The Shadow of the Torturer, 4 stars. And Cryptonomicon, 4 stars. Okay. Okay, and so that comes out to a grand total of 17 5 stars, 21 4 stars, 8 3 stars, 3 2 stars, and 2 1 stars. All right. So I have actually created, I've created a few lists to go along with this to kind of highlight my favorites, my disappointments, things like that. And Heidi's going to help me out with that here.
Yeah. You want to start with the good ones and move our way to the...
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay. So your top so far, in no particular order.
Yeah, none of these are in any particular order at all.
So Childhood's End, which is number 19 on your list.
And this one is by Arthur C. Clarke. This is just a wonderful tale, and really what makes this so great is how it ends and just the frustration you feel for the human race throughout the story, but then how it ends hits you so incredibly hard. It's just amazing. It deserves to be at near the top of the list, if not at the very top. Oh, and to keep in mind, I did not include Dune on any of these because I rattle on all the time about how Dune is the greatest book ever. So that's known. So that
Dune is number 1 on the list and number 1 on Aaron's list.
So we can just leave that one out for the sake of how great it is. It just surpasses everything.
Okay, Left Hand of Darkness.
Left Hand of Darkness is right here by Ursula K. Le Guin. This one is just a very, very human character story on a very interesting and kind of bizarre world, but it has humans, but just their circumstance and the way they're slightly not normal or typical humans just makes for such a great character story of just culture clashing, yes, thank you, and almost a love story in there too that Aww. and just it's hard to talk about this one without spoiling it, but it is so touching, so touching. And it is just, yeah, it's a great one. I'm going to talk some more about this one later, too.
So that was number 24 on the list. The Diamond Age, which is number 57.
I don't have a copy of this one. I think our local bookstore has a nice brand new leather-bound copy of it. I want a hardback so bad, and I can't find a hardback on the internet, so it's really expensive, but I think for Christmas I'm going to splurge and buy a leather-bound copy of it. The Diamond Age, it is the best Neil Stephenson book I have read so far. I have read Snow Crash, The Diamond Age, and Cryptonomicon. I have a few more. I have An Anthem, and then 2 and 3 of the Quicksilver trilogy there. But it is just an amazing story of technology, where it goes, and it almost has this Victorian influence to it as well, and just a fantastic coming together of multiple threads of the narrative that's just very wowing. And so that one definitely is in the top 5 so far.
Fire Upon the Deep, which is number 44.
Fire Upon the Deep by Werner Ving. I love this one. I think, in retrospect, because I read it at the correct time. I had read a lot of frustrating, just not so good stories on the list, and this was exactly the kind of pace, exactly the kind of world, exactly the kind of characters that I needed in the moment. Rachel at Colonnati actually did this one recently. She just told me about this today. She didn't like this book, and that kind of stung a bit. And also my best friend had been borrowing this for a while, and he hadn't gotten past like chapter 3. She's like, I just couldn't get it. I'm like, yeah, so this is definitely going to be on the best of the year so far. So I'll definitely talk about this later, and I've already gushed about this book so much this year. So of course that's going to be in the top 5.
Rendezvous with Rama, which is number 14.
Some more about Rendezvous with Rama, but another Arthur C. Clarke. This one's just amazing. It is
I've actually read this one.
Yeah, and she really enjoyed it too in the series overall. This is a great story of adventure and a very event-driven story of discovery, and it is just the kickoff to a wonderful, wonderful series too. And so, of course, it's going to be in the top 5. All right.
So those were your top. Now let's talk about the bottom of the list, the most disappointing.
Yes, most disappointing or just / bad.
Okay, Neuromancer, which is number 10 on the list.
Number 10 on the list, and my same friend that did not like A Fire Upon the Deep has literally been hounding me to read this for close to 2 decades. And I finally read it, and it's shit. It's... William Gibson has some wonderful ideas, and this created a whole new subgenre of science fiction, but he cannot write a narrative to save his life. It is so clunky, and you don't even know or understand the location of where the characters are, or really what they're seeing. He kind of creates his own language, but you don't understand it, and some people think that's deep. I think it's lazy. So, yeah, so that one was a big, big disappointment, especially for how hyped it's been in the community and by my friends and just at large overall.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Oh, boy.
Number 36 on the list.
I just finished this one recently. Let's see, when was this one written? This is one of the older books on the list here. And so that was written in, this was written in 1870. And in 1870, this was probably an amazing book of wonderment and just things that weren't common knowledge at the time. In 2016, so much of this is just like a redundant science lesson and like reading an atlas. And so it is just, if you live in a modern or somewhat modern nation today, this is a very boring book because it's a bunch of stuff. So much of the story is just things you already know. And the excitement does not make up for it. So I'm actually going to talk about this one on another section that's coming up here too.
The Mote in God's Eye, number 26.
This is a very famous one in the genre too. This is by Larry Niven. Some say it's his best work. It had its moments of being really, really good, being very exciting, having some very curious concepts. However, it just couldn't pull through. It couldn't make itself a great story. It had parts of that just lagged, or that you just, WTF was that in there for? And it just didn't have enough there to make it as great as it's praised for in the genre overall. And so that was really disappointing for how much I have heard this book hyped.
That was Larry Niven?
Larry Niven.
So you've read some of his other works, right?
I have read Ringworld also, and Lucifer's Hammer is also on the list. I haven't been able to find a copy of that. And they've been underwhelming. I just really don't think he's an author for me. It's just not my style. Oh.
Makes sense. The Man in the High Castle, number 31.
I wrapped this one up recently. This is by Philip K. Dick. It just didn't have really anything. It had uninspiring characters. It had a narrative that was boring. I guess it's kind of curious, what he thought the world would look like had the Axis won World War II. But it wasn't really anything to keep your interest. And I'm going to have a spoiler here.
Spoiler!
At the end of this book, it had the audacity to suggest maybe it was all a dream. And that made me so mad.
Worst trope
so
ever.
Mad. Worst trope in storytelling ever. So, yeah, very disappointing.
The Martian Chronicles, number 22.
This is by Ray Bradbury. He's a very, very famous author. Has an amazingly poetic way of writing stories. However, it was incredibly boring. It was so boring. And this was not originally written as a novel. It was written as pieces that were published in magazines originally, just about Mars in general. Some of them are really great, but overall it was not good as one whole story. Unlike
It's right here.
This is just classic. I feel like I don't need to mention it too much on this. Fahrenheit 451, it is great. It makes you think. It makes you sad, especially as a book lover. But makes you a little happy too. So,
Which was the robot book that was a bunch of short stories, which was also... Was that it?
iRobot. Yes.
It was disappointing because they were each individually released in some sort of news publication.
Oh, no. That was this one by Stanislaw Lem, The Siberiad. I actually gave this one a high rating, even for how exhausting it was to read these, because these were highly, highly, highly satirical. They were hilarious, but it was so much shtick that it just hurt after a while. But I will actually... That's coming up on the last part, maybe the last section here.
Were those books similar in that when they were originally published, it was in small doses?
I don't think iRobot was. I think that was originally meant to be...
Martian Chronicles?
Martian Chronicles, yes. That was meant to be taken in small doses in periodicals, science fiction periodicals, I believe. Just a moment.
Flatland. Number 84 on the list.
Flatland by Edwin A. Abbott. This was written...
It just sounds so bad.
This has a very interesting concept. It's about a two-dimensional world, but for some reason, when two-dimensional characters see each other from the side, they can still see each other, or they can still feel each other. That kind of made sense. It had some interesting ideas, and especially at the time, this was written in the 1800s. I think it was like 1880, something like that. But, man, Abbott, first off, he's a very sexist individual. The women in this had to be escorted by either their husband or their children all the time. He wrote it because they were only lines And so they could not be seen generally from the side. But then also there was this part where he explains that women could not be taught the language of intelligence because why would you want to teach so foolish a person as a woman the language of intelligence, because that's just dangerous. So, and also it read like a manual half the time. So just really bad. This is one of the 1 stars on the list here.